Great to see everybody. Obviously, exciting weekend for us to find a way to win that game on Saturday, and I think the film yesterday and even watching it Saturday night, I think bared out that it was a game of a lot of ebbs and flows. Certainly some opportunities for us to take hold of that game a little bit more, but it ultimately didn't happen. And credit to Eastern Washington to make some plays to obviously make it very, very interesting. And fortunately, we were able to string enough plays together on both sides of the football at the end of the game to win it. I'm proud of our guys for that. Proud of our guys for their resolve and picking each other up. And I do think it's a very challenging place to play and to win. Not necessarily because of the red turf, because Eastern Washington's been very good for a long time. They've been as consistent a program as the conference has seen, really. So I'm happy about that, and now we're on to another real good opponent in UC Davis, and got our sights set on an excellent opportunity this Saturday. Playing on national TV, prime time, all that fun stuff. So it should be a great week of prep, and a great game on Saturday night. So open it up.
Does winning 2 in a row on the red turf for the first time, and you're now 2-0 on the place that they haven't had a lot of success on? I mean, is that something you've kind of thought about much or take pride in?
Well, I think when we looked at the schedule, knew we had to go back there for a second year in a row, just the way things worked out. Knew that was going to be a challenge. Setting up as our first conference game, coming off the Oregon State game. So there was definitely some things, I guess, that were stacked against us. But I knew we'd have an opportunity to go in there and win it. I don't think our guys were overwhelmed by the scenario that was in front of them, I guess. So, we did what we had to, and going on the road and winning anywhere, I guess, is a challenge. But there maybe in particular. So I credit our players just not letting past performance or past history be part of the equation, I guess. I mean, it shouldn't be, but sometimes that's hard. That's difficult for young men to figure out sometimes.
Anything else that stood out on film that didn't stand out, I guess, after the game?
Well, I think our guys again continue to play very hard. One thing that I probably didn't talk enough about, I do think we really gained an advantage special teams wise. We had a couple bad special teams plays between the missed field goal and the last punt, but we really, good chunk of the middle part of that game, they were playing on the long field and we were playing on the short field. Now, we didn't take advantage of all that, but a lot of that has to do with our special teams. You throw a block punt in there as the biggest kind of game-changing play. We really negated Chisholm in the return game. I think that was very critical. So, probably not enough credit post-game to just, I think, the edge that we gained in special teams.
And the missed field goal, obviously you expected 19-yarder to go in, but was there a debate or a thought about going for 4th and 2 there?
Well, my thought process there, I wanted to capitalize on the block punt with some points before the half. We had taken 3 plays and gone about 2.5 yards. We were still at about 2.5 to go. It's easy to say you don't make it, you should have gone for it. I would take the points again in that situation, given the point in time of the game. But it was the 3 preceding plays as much as it was anything that that caused me to make that decision.
I know we talked about this run game a lot, but to get over 300 yards rushing in that environment, especially, how big was that to see?
Well, it was big, and I know for the first time in a bunch of weeks we did a little bit more traditionally with a running back contributing to that, and it was great to see Elijah step up to that opportunity. I know we spoke to his lack of opportunity at the Oregon State game, and there was a lot of things that went into that were kind of out of his control, and even I think Taylor's control calling plays. So, I really appreciate how he responded. I think we know we can get some mileage out of our quarterbacks. We got a couple plays, I think, with our receivers mixed in, but to get some traditional run game out of from a running back was big, and I think we'll continue to get guys back and healthy, so that should continue to be part of what we expect each week.
And then looking ahead to this week, is there any excuse me, is there any different I guess prep for a primetime game, or I guess what is that kind of?
Well, we've played 2 night games to this point, not as late. We did play this late. I know the Weber game was an 8 o'clock plus game last year. I know the Sam Houston game was a later game. So our guys have at least, gone through. It's really the waiting over the course of a day. We practice in the mornings, so it's flipping our schedule around. All of a sudden, practice at 8 o'clock wouldn't make any sense. 8 o'clock at night. So it'll be dark, and we've played without lights before, in front of the lights, but in the dark, I guess, before. So. No, I think it should be a great environment for our guys. I know the weather looks like it's going to be pretty solid all week. I know it's October 1st, so you can probably get just about anything, but it should be a great environment. It's a great opportunity for our school, for our conference to be be on that stage on ESPNU.
And then looking ahead to Davis, I guess what you see from them. I know Gilliam is kind of a standout running back for them.
Yeah, they're to this point, being 1-3, I don't think tells a story. They were right there against South Dakota State with a chance to tie. Last Saturday, this game against Weber, that was a back and forth affair. So I do think, as I've seen them, I mean, we haven't played them since I've been here yet, but offensively very diverse, a lot of weapons. Shoot, the quarterback at Hastings had 39 completions, I think, to 10 plus different guys. They used their backs out of the backfield really well. Gilliam, was probably as good an offensive player right now as there is in the league. But receivers, tight ends, use your running backs in the pass game quite a bit. And then on defense, I think they've played really good defense to this point. They give you a lot of different looks. Multiple front defense that we haven't seen in a few weeks now. So, an adjustment on that end. We're gonna have to play well to win. There's no denying that, and this will be a great challenge for us.
How's Tommy doing?
I think he's feeling better. He was out there this morning. So progress from Saturday, and that's what you want to see. It's our hope that he can continue to make progress through the next couple of days, so that next week he's able to be active. And that's still a work in progress.
And so inactive for sure on Saturday then.
Yeah.
Any other injury, Jeff? I mean,
Jeff will be back. Jeff was kind of the lingering head injury from the Oregon State game that midweek it was determined that he was going to be out. Lane is practicing this week. I know we got to sort through how effective he can be, but he's full go practicing. So I suspect that he'll be able to contribute. Titan Fleischman is back. What that'll mean for our regular flow, I don't know, but he is back. And otherwise we're sitting pretty good out of that game.
And just with Tommy's injury, I guess seeing on film that play again, did it same takeaway as far as the hit, and did you feel okay with it?
Yeah, Tommy's sliding off of the deep safety, which he's clearly 5 yards away from. He's not feeling the pursuit from either side, and I don't know that those guys necessarily had time to react. They more hit helmet to helmet, the two Eastern defenders, but Tommy took the blow from the side, and it's one of those things that's very bang as a quarterback running, or anybody for that matter running in the middle of the field. You got to kind of be aware from all sides, and he wasn't necessarily in that situation, unfortunately, and I hated to see it go down the way it did, but I don't think it's one of those plays that happens so quickly in the game of football that I don't know if it could have been officiated any different or coached any different, anything like that. It's unfortunate.
And you've talked about how it's football and injuries happen and things. I guess how much do keep that in mind and weigh risk and how much your quarterbacks are getting hit and things like that? How tough is that, I guess?
No, it's complicated. I think they're definitely a dynamic part of our offensive scheme. It's been my experience. It seems over many years that the quarterbacks that I've coached have got hurt throwing the ball and getting hit from that perspective more than they have in the run game. But it's happened both ways. I think obviously you raise the risk, you elevate the risk, I guess, the more you expose them to hits, and you try to have them be as smart as possible. But then they in that situation almost become defenseless. Would he have been better off just taking on that middle safety? I guess in that scenario you would have. But there's definitely times when that's not the case either. So it's definitely a calculated risk, and and injuries are not something that you want to even plan for. I look at like where the 49ers are at right now, and is that part of why Trey Lance got hurt because they ran him, or you say, well, for him to be successful, we have to run him, and it's part of the deal? I mean, it's just, I think you got to just come to grips with it's part of the deal, and if an injury does occur, what are you going to do moving forward, and that's what we're dealing with right now.
And then Mac Jones gets hit in the pocket, and Tom Brady got hit in the pocket. So it's hard to predict those things.
It's a position that is obviously everybody's after the guy with the ball, and they have the ball a lot. It's just a function of football is that your quarterback is likely gonna get hit, and you hope for the best when that happens.
And I forget if we talked about it, you mentioned it, but it was bringing Sean in. Part of obviously he's playing a lot in preventing time from getting hit more. So how much, I guess, was that sort of the factor of bringing him in too?
Well, I think it was to promote competition, to add depth to that position, to add another, I think, playmaker to that position. I think it was all of that, and through the first bunch of games, I think we were able to offset some of the at least the amount of carries by having Sean run the ball. So yeah, I mean, that was all part of the plan, and I know that it's way more comforting knowing now we have a guy with the experience that Sean has that we can insert, and ideally, this is 1 week for Tommy, and we can have him back in the fold in another week.
Well, speaking of Sean, he'll get his first start in a Bobcat uniform this weekend. Have you had any conversations about that, or what are your expectations with him?
Well, I think his approach will be a little bit different. The reps he gets in practice will be a little bit more directed towards, a grander scheme, I guess, or broader amount of our offense. But this is no huge deal for him. He has started many games before, so preparing as a starter is a little bit of a shift, but he's done it before. So I'm excited to see what he can do in that role. And the bigger thing is getting Sean Austin up to speed. Sean hasn't got a lot of reps as we've gone through the fall, so it'll be important that he's at least positioned to be ready to go into the game.
With Tommy and Sean, you guys run a lot of 2 QB stuff. Would you do that with Sean Austin?
I don't know if it's as desirable. With Sean and Tommy, I think it's clear that those two guys are two of our better runners, especially given our situation that we've been in with our running back position. So no, I don't see us going down that road.
I think Danny leads the team in tackles right now. I guess what have you seen from him through 4 games? I know he's involved in that crazy play at the end of the game, but what have you seen from him through 4 games?
Well, he's around the ball. I think he's got really good instincts, and that's ultimately what got him to that position to be the starting Mike. I do think that group of 3 guys is playing good football. Cal and Nolan as well. But Danny's taken a big jump from where he was last year. I think when he played last year, he did some things, but it wasn't enough to say he needs to be on the field regularly. And now he's obviously earned that opportunity and has made the most of it so far.
Yeah, and you mentioned that group of 3. I guess I know building depth has been such a key for this team, but how big is that to know you got 3 guys, including Nolan, kind of in that group, that there's not much of a drop off there?
No, it's good. It's what we like had intended to do last year. Nolan got hurt pretty early, and we really leaned on those 2 guys, Cal and Troy, almost exclusively. So to have 3, and I do think we have some guys developing behind that. McCade O'Reilly's going to be out for a few weeks, but McCade was really making some strides. I think Alex Johnson, if given an opportunity, could go out there and play winning football. Jory Schultz come a long way too. So, that position is critical in our defense, both linebacking spots, and those guys need to be around the ball. They need to be seeing things correctly. They need to be getting us in the right checks, and then when they get an opportunity to tackle the football, they need to do it, and they've been doing that for the most part.
Anything else? Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a for you, Coach. First of all, we talked after the game on Saturday about how it could be sort of a launching point for you guys, right? Having a great win in Cheney. How do you go about harnessing that momentum without talking too much about the past and then focusing on the present?
Well, I think you try to pull out the positives and the fact that, okay, we definitely have some guys that can make plays when called upon. We got a team that is going to be able to count on one another. But then you also got to say, okay, guys, we got to do this, and this better. We got to be a team that's improving each week. That was really the charge this morning. Was that was a heck of a win, but I don't know if it was a heck of a performance necessarily. And just keep moving forward. But every week you got to learn from that prior game. And you got to be able to bank that, go out in practice field. And today is a lot about corrections. Get those things corrected. Start digging into the next opponent, and reutilize, I guess, that same formula every week. And hopefully you can in some way quantify that you are getting better each week. Because as a football team, you're trying to gain momentum, and that's where I do think a win in that situation from a lot of just the intangible things you can build off of that, and I think that's what I saw mostly out of our guys is just coming off a really hard loss where we didn't perform the way we'd hoped to find a way. I think you can always look each other in the eye and say, okay, we're going to figure this out, and if that's calling back to the last Saturday, that's calling back to last Saturday.
Speaking of really figuring it out, it seems like Sebastian Valdez has been big enough and strong enough, just as for the last 2 years, but it seems like he really has a sense of the moment now too. It seems like he's sort of rising up to realize he is a premier player. So how much does that confidence help his performance?
No, I think it's it's big. He's got to be a playmaker for us. He was a guy that made some plays last year, was certainly playing second fiddle to some really good playmakers up front, and I think he recognizes that he's got to be maybe the catalyst up front, and whether it's been in the run game or the pass game, I think he's continued to fine-tune his game technically, but then in some really critical moments, I don't know that it's finding another gear or whatever, but just finding a way to make a play. And I thought our defensive line really had an impact through the second half, in particular in that game, putting pressure, getting some hits on Talkington. Early on he got flushed a couple times. We didn't get him, but ultimately we made those plays as the game went along. And Sebastian's such a humble but hungry player with a whole bunch of ability and strength and weight now. It's you see him continuing to just climb as this year goes on, his career does.
Also wanted to ask about James Campbell. It's still a feature on him, and he's from a long ways away, but he's stuck it out through all the stuff that's gone on with the program and with him too. So what have you thought of his perseverance to make it through his senior year?
Well, I've really appreciated James since I got here. He's a very determined young man. I think that determination has allowed him to withstand being a long ways from home, being an offensive player that's become a defensive player. having a real impact on special teams takes, especially as a younger player, it takes a kid that is determined to make an impact no matter what. So, I really thought James responded on Saturday with a good game. He probably didn't play his best or wasn't as aggressive as we maybe would have liked at Oregon State in some instances, but bounced back, and he's a competitor and he's a team player. He's down there covering punts as well. He drew a flag on a punt. So I just I appreciate who he is. I think he's one of our unsung leaders. I think a lot of guys appreciate the way he goes about his business, so he doesn't necessarily have to say much, but he really does have an impact on a bunch of guys. So he's a guy that's not a captain, he's not on our leadership council, but he's definitely one of those guys that still has a presence about him.
And when it comes to UC Davis, you mentioned the record, but I mean I've watched them against South Dakota State and against Weber State, and they look very good. So how do you sort of communicate now? Obviously your guys will be ready to go, but I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs last year, preseason top 25. I mean, they're a very, very talented team despite their record.
Yeah, I think you point out who they've played. I think everybody sees that. I think Weber and South Dakota State are among the best teams in FCS. Cal, I think Cal's 3-1 right now. And even the last 3 games of last year, which they lost, were 2 playoff teams in a playoff game. So. No, they're good. They're dangerous, and their backs are against the wall. I think you point all those things out. I think you just flip the film on, and I think our guys will recognize that this is this is gonna be a challenge. Both sides of the football. They got a lot of ways to move the ball on offense, and defensively they've been very stout. And I think both Weber and South Dakota State in particular, I think have good offenses that they've been able to keep in check for the most part. So, we're gonna have to play well. I think our guys understand that. I do think our guys have really do understand that each week's its own week, and we got to prepare and we got to find a way to get better week in, week out, and that's the task they're on as of this morning.
They threw the ball a lot last week. Hastings looks like a pretty good quarterback, but it seems as if there's sort of this brand of UC Davis because of Dan Hawkins and because of what they had for several years when they first joined the Big Sky of sort of this offensive-oriented team. But when I watch them, they look really good on defense. How do you evaluate their defense? They look really fast. Yeah,
I think they're sound first and foremost. They tackle well. I think their linebacking crew so their inside backers and their outside backers, can cover a lot of ground. They play enough man coverage so they can challenge their corners in particular. And then they got some really effective guys up front, they got one guy, he's 350, that's hard to move, but they got some active guys up front too. So, it's a really good collection. And I think they have the ability to play a bunch of guys on defense as well to keep guys fresh. So, been impressed with them. And that's defending the pass, and then really slowing down the run game. So, we're gonna, like I've said many times, we're gonna have to play well to get this done.
Can you crossover with Dan Hawkins, and if so, how would you just describe his style?
No, I mean outside of our interactions at our different Big Sky activities, whether that's our winter meeting or the kickoff, certainly respect his success as a coach going back quite some time. He definitely made his mark as a head coach at Boise, and then got the opportunity to go to Colorado, and then he's out of the coaching game for a while and gets back into it internationally, and then finds his way back to his alma mater. And Davis moved up to 1AA at the time, about the same time we did at NDSU, so we were in that Great West Conference, and I'd say they struggled a little bit towards the tail end of our time in the Great West. So kind of lost sight of them a little bit in the Big Sky. We played them at Wyoming in I think it was in 16. But then he's really I think there was a certain level of struggle there for a few years, but he's brought stability, success to that program. Knows who he is, knows how he wants to do things, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit. So it'll be good to compete against him for the first time here.
Last one for me. Davis had a couple preseason all-league offensive linemen, and I know that Jake Parks has been starter and All-American caliber there guy on the inside of the offensive line for a while. Does that show up on film? Did you see them have a pretty talented offensive front?
Yeah, they're not the biggest, weight wise, but they're athletic. I think that's what you see. So, with that athletic, they got good length. So they're good both. I think in the things they ask them to do in the run game are more from an athletic perspective, I'd say. But then protect the passer, they're good. So yeah, you throw the ball 59 times for or whatever it was, 57 times, and you're having to pass block a lot, and you're protecting that guy pretty well, and he's got time to throw. So no, they've anytime you're balanced like they are, it does start with an offensive line that can both run and pass block and has athleticism, and you can really ask them to do a lot. So no, they've been impressive.